Welcome back to another episode of the Williford Brothers. We are your show hosts, Luke and
Lee Williford.
Today we are honored to be joined by our father, our mentor, our hero, our dad, Marshall Williford. Dad, thanks for coming on.
Great to be here, boys. It's a great seat to be sitting in between you two guys.
It's the hot seat.
It's the hot seat. You got me in the hot seat. Yes.
I think most of our viewers know of you. You know, we talk about you quite a bit on different episodes, and so today they get to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Oh boy.
Hopefully everything we've said up to this far is on point.
I'm sure it is.
So Dad's been in the industry a really long time. Dad, what have you seen kind of change? Or first just tell us kind of where you started.
How you got in.
Yeah.
And then
Well, I really, as a boy, I remember we would help Dad, and we would clean the stores, and we had a store in Williamston. Actually, at that time, 2 stores in Williamston. And one was very small, and it was in a sort of rougher part of town. But I remember that we would clean it and mop the floor and everything, and next door was a little place called Griffin's Quick Lunch. This is in Williamston. And we looked forward to afterwards, we'd go get a hamburger steak and stuff that we never had. We never ate out back then, actually that's about 60 years ago now. And then as time progressed, Dad ended up buying a laundromat and dry cleaners in Windsor that both had folded. And he essentially had to take them over because he had built this little cinder block building. And so he ended up closing one of the stores in Williamston, had the other store open in Williamston, the Sunshine Center it was called back then, and had a store in Windsor. And eventually Dad's dream came true. He started farming. And as he started farming, he didn't really take time or have time for the laundromats as much. And so my brother Rodney bought the cleaners, and I bought the 2 laundromats, and we went from there. Back then, it was exactly like it is today. One aspect only, customer experience. To this day, it'll always be the same. The greatest marketing tool is a great customer experience. Now, things have really changed over time because everybody walks with the marketing tool in their hand. So that aspect of it has been exciting for me to see you guys adjust promptly to that. And that's why the next generation always needs to have the latitude to move forward. Because when you get to my age, I'm knocking on the door of 69 next month, and you get to that age that the fire's not there like it was 50 years ago when I went in business in 1974, officially went in business in 1974 for myself. And plus, the great innovation comes from young minds. I always believe that. There'll be some that come from older people that over time they finally figure it out. But the great customer experience is always the main thing. If you go to a restaurant and the service and food are not good, you're not going back. Same thing with the laundromat, and that's where people often don't understand in the industry. People within it don't understand that our customer, you have to have that customer experience, and the best way is take your clothes from the house, go to your laundromat, and use your laundromat. And that over the years, I would do that with my brother and my brother-in-law. I would go to their stores and use them, and then they'd ask me about the experience, and I wanted them to do the same with mine, do a walkthrough. I was in the dry cleaning business at one time, too, and we shared ideas, and you can critique better from the outside when you walk in, especially being professionals like my brother and my brother-in-law are. Mm-hmm. We could critique each other well. And,
that's good. Good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So customer experience, that because we're a customer-focused industry, you know, it's not the dirty laundry so much. It's the person who wears that dirty laundry that we're most concerned about. It's just the dirty laundry that brings them into the laundromat. That has carried itself over the past 50 years. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry, from equipment to size of laundromats, things like that?
Well, more recently, probably the size of laundromats. Mm-hmm. But as far as from then and now, the equipment is no comparison. We had transmissions on the top loading machines, transmissions on the front loading machines, and believe me, all those moving little gears, they tend to not work well over time. Yeah, and so that has been the big difference that I've seen, and we're seeing more professionals, people that seek to be professional in whatever they're in, get into the industry, which is good for the industry, which in the end is good for the consumer and the customer, which is, goes back to the same thing. That's what it's all about.
Yes. Yeah, professionalizing that our industry has, it's not one of those words that we talk about a lot, but that it has happened. We're kind of a late arriver to that type of mentality, but there are so many professionals who have come from outside of the industry who are bringing a professional mind to the industry. They see the potential, and so they kind of want to fit into a niche themselves. So that also helps to elevate the experience that the customer has.
Exactly.
So that's great.
I remember back in, I guess it was the 80s, I think it was, guys, that I had a friend, his name was Joe Freeman. He was a manager for an oil company down home, and he had been out to a conference out in, I think it was California at the time. Okay. And he had a picture of a convenience store with this big line of pumps, gas pumps. I thought it was the wildest thing I'd ever seen. Wow. I'm like, he says, this is what it will look like in the future when you buy your gas. Wow. And of course, in our rural area, the guy had one or two pumps out front, and that's where everybody had to get their gas. And
probably somebody who was out there, servicing, filling.
That was
you
me.
You did that.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. That was my hustle on the weekends. Is I worked at a little convenience store and bagged groceries and pumped gas. Yeah. And he was right. It changed. That emerged in the late 80s, 90s, and then you see what we have today with the new modern stores. Yeah. I see that in the laundromats having occurred in approximately the last 10 years, probably. I see that change taking place. Larger stores, much nicer stores, much more visible, a lot bigger investment, which is tends to really, I mean, it takes a huge investment up front. It's one of those things that our industry has needed for a long time, and the greatest benefactor of that is the customer, which is in the end exactly what you want, and that breeds success for the industry.
That's good. I think the professionals coming in, they see our business model as simple. They saw it get through COVID, so a lot of professionals are coming in, but it's not easy, And what has made it more easy is the manufacturers have made better equipment.
They like sure have.
I know I bust my knuckles, but I can see the difference between 2009 equipment and 2023. It's a lot less maintenance, a lot more efficient.
Absolutely.
And we're just thankful. Shout out to all the manufacturers out there: Dexter, Speed Queen Alliance,
R&B,
everybody, R&B carts. Everything from the tables to chairs to everything's continued to improve. One thing I wanted to ask for the viewer watching maybe can relate is early on you took a lot of risk. What in rural markets, these markets aren't huge, thriving markets. What led you and gave you the ability to take that, the confidence?
Well, I guess it's sort of the same methodology and opportunity you guys have seen. It's just on a smaller scale. I saw that there were better laundromats needed in the area we were in, and I remember at one time when I was in 7 counties, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm in the whole world now. I'm serving in seven different counties with 7 different stores, and I just thought I'd never dreamed I would be there. And then Terry, your mom, had gotten an old video out the other day, VHS, and popped it in, and she started showing me. I spoke at a CLA conference out in California, and I think this was 1993, 92, something like that. Yeah, it's been 30 years, and the difference in the snapshots I had on there of stores, and but it basically, the idea and the marketing aspect of it still hasn't changed. Better locations, better visibility, make the investment. If you're not going to make the investment, this is an industry you need to stay away from. It takes a huge investment, as you guys know, and reinvestment. And that's probably been the missing point of most of what I've seen in my life of the industry that is now I'm retired and you guys are rolling, which is a blessing in itself. And Justice and Josh also, it's just been awesome to watch you guys work at your craft and your heart's in it. And when your heart's in it, we just work harder. And I remember way back I would buy a store and I'm like, this guy's heart wasn't in it at all. Didn't reinvest, didn't put time in, didn't put work in, the work ethic. And I'm like, I'm going to try to make sure I do all I can. And then what comes with that is the risk factor. And also, I remember early on, one of the best things probably happened to me was I rented a little teeny office, and it was next door to a state tax auditor, and which was really good because he's going out and auditing people every day. So I'm like, I want to make sure I do this right. Well, that was a blessing for me because I ended up putting the money where it was supposed to be in the bank, reinvesting, building a better operation. And in the end, that's the way it should be. Always. But I saw, and you guys have seen, where people don't put money back, they don't reinvest, and eventually it's like anything else. They're up for sale. I mean, it's
for
just
pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it's just the way it is, and so the commitment has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
We get to see when we take over stores that are not ran properly. When we take them over and do our thing and brand them, the revenue increase. Was that the case back in the day when you took these stores over, and what would be the factor to make that? I mean, you're in a rural market, maybe you're the only store there. How did you create more customers or create customers spending more or doing more laundry?
Well, I guess it's sort of like what I've watched in Fayetteville over the last 12 years. I think it is at least something about that, 10 or 12 years, because I've asked you guys before, where in the world were people doing their laundry?
I have no clue.
Because the investment we've made over the last decade has been unreal. The business is unreal, and so it just tends to let me realize that that people can get by with very little and very poor operations and somehow get their laundry done. But at the same time, that's not the way it should be. And when you start doing it the way it should be, and then you happen to hit a market like Fayetteville that is a growing, expanding metropolis almost compared to what it was when I remember when I first went there. And now there are additional shopping centers, infrastructure, highways. I'm like, in 10 years' time, it's hard to believe. So those emerging markets in a rural place like we were in, when you cut your teeth doing business in an area like that, and you take that business model where the demographics are to you where the people are, it is sort of eye popping, and you start crunching the numbers with your model, and you have to start investing more and more, larger and larger stores.
But it all makes sense.
It all makes sense.
You've got more people probably in a 5-mile radius in some of these than were in those 7 counties that you were serving.
The entire 7 counties.
Yeah,
exactly. It might be 150,000 people in that 5-mile radius in some of the cities we're in, and that encapsulated more than I had in 7 counties. Yeah. Exactly.
So you spent a lot of time in the car driving.
Absolutely. And I tell people I've driven 60 to 80,000 miles a year for the last 50 years, essentially. I mean, I've really driven a lot.
Still driving.
Still driving. Well, now I get to come see the grandkids.
Yeah, that's true. To drive.
Priceless.
Yes.
I don't have to twist his arm to do that.
No.
Dad lives about 2.5 hours away on the coast, and we get back there a lot, and he comes up here a lot.
Yeah.
It's great.
We don't need much of an excuse.
Yes.
6 of our grandkids back this way and 6 back that way. Yes, we're blessed.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Well, where do you think you think about the 50 years that you've been in this industry, and all that's changed, and how rapidly things have changed in the past 10 years with technology? What does the future look like?
That is a real good question, Lee. And in watching things emerge over the last 50 years, I think there'll always be a use for laundromats, because I think our greatest margin of growth has been in the home user that has a washing machine, because I hear people talk about they tear their machine all to pieces, putting their comforter in it, thinking they can wash it in their washer at home. And then they come to a laundromat and they have a good customer experience, game changer, because they'll come 3-4 times a year, 5 times a year, and before they were going nowhere. And they would take the comforters to a professional cleaners, which is not a bad idea. It's just so much more expensive. And so those things, and I think there will be much larger stores, probably not as great a number of stores, but a lot greater number of equipment, pounds per store
Capacity,
that can
yes.
be, processed. That is huge, because I think there will always be a market for the home user. And also there are others that do laundry for people. And when they find your store, and I think everything will be card operated within 10 or 20 years, and I think that's probably stretching it out, being kind to coin store owners.
Yes.
I think it needs to be probably 3 months.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
and
this is a
And
guy
you weren't,
who,
you weren't entirely convinced.
Oh.
Probably 8 years ago.
well,
I wasn't either.
was.
We did, yeah.
We had not
definitely.
seen a system that we felt good about at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Things have emerged. There are good systems out there. You guys developed the premier system. I mean, I think everybody says that the system that we have in house is the best we've run across. There are great systems out there, and of course, it makes it nice when you have an in-house system and you have. When you start getting up there,
And you helped us build it, man.
Yes.
Oh man, I mean, you're like vital. So
Yes.
if you come in our
absolutely.
stores and you like the experience with the payment system,
And if you're
Marshall had a lot to do with it.
If you're a dad maybe and your son's coming on or whatever, family business owner, give a little leeway, man. He has blessed us tremendously
Yes.
and gave us the opportunity. And when we brought ideas, that they weren't shut down. They were accepted. And if you guys think it'll work, or let's try it. I remember a few years back. Yeah, let's just try it. And that's what Dad's always said. I always recall the car wash in Washington. I remember going to Dad and saying, I'm going to start a full-service car wash. And I'd go to him the next weekend. I'm going to start. He's like, you aren't washing cars yet? Just try it. There's no risk. Just go out there and put your sign up and see how it goes.
Right.
And I think he's taught us that a lot. Don't overcomplicate it. Just try it.
and nurturing, entrepreneurship. That's
absolutely
big for us.
yes.
And
And that's probably a good time to sort of insert, because I know there are owners out there in the industry, my age and older, that I'm sure want to hold on to control, and sometimes that's good.
Yeah.
But I remember I met a guy when I was on the CLA board. Great guy, John Ford. He was a great mentor down in Texas. Had a huge number of holdings and laundries and dry cleaners, and I asked him about his son. I said, is he involved in the business? Yes, he is. I said, is he going to take over one day? He said, well, I'm starting the process now. I just turned 60, he said, and I promised myself at 60 I would start giving him more and more reins with the business. As long as he was in it, doing well in life, being responsible, I'd start giving him the reins. And a few years later, after John had gotten off the board, he had completely turned everything over to Kyle over the course of several years there. And I asked him, I said, well, how's he doing? And he said, a lot better than I ever did. And so about 8 or 9 years ago, I started giving you guys more and more latitude, and really thought at about 65, I'd probably go ahead and go to 70. And then I look up and I'm like, now's the time. These guys are doing it great. They've got wind in their sails, and they got fire in their belly, and they're focused on customer experience, and the mission at hand, which has always been our mission, is to serve those people out there, many of which come from abstract poverty, some of them.
Yes.
As far as America goes, they're
Meager means.
very meager means, and so that customer experience is valuable for everybody, but it almost doubles down with those people from meager means, and that's been one of the most moving aspects of watching you guys, and as well as Josh and Justice and their teams also, is that we're serving people,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as we serve people properly, the good Lord will take care of the
Yes.
rest, and
Mhm.
we've been mighty, mighty blessed with that.
Yes, amen.
Yes. The word that
That's
just
good.
came to mind that just defines that is generosity.
Mm.
I think
Yes.
just generosity. I mean, I've never known anyone
Yes.
to be as
He's a generous
generous
man,
as
that's
our
for sure.
dad. And it just goes from the customer in the store who needs a refund or whatnot that's never been questioned ever, to the worker who can't afford a car. He just buys them a car. Nobody knows about it. To houses, he's bought houses for people who worked in the company. I remember seeing as a kid,
Yeah.
and I'm just so thankful
That looks like.
and that I got to witness that, and hopefully it's instilled in us, and
Yes.
and it's just a product of generosity. I mean, you've continued to be generous, and the Lord's blessed that.
That's right.
You know,
Yep. And that's a biblical model. Man, oh man. Yeah, you have
Well-
sown quite a bit
well,
liberally, and the
well-
Lord has grown it.
Hopefully what we all do is we manage the blessings that he has given us to manage, and manage them the best we know how. And sometimes that means that people have needs, and we've been honored over the years to meet a lot of needs, and that's the greatest blessing of all.
Yes.
And being able to do that, and along with the customer experience being a positive experience, is I know when I was in Anger yesterday, and this has happened several times over the years. We put in a new store, we gut it, we buy a store, gut it, and then we reopen. And somebody will walk in, and it's like a lady told me yesterday. She says, "Sir, this is going to really be nice for the town of Anger." And I'm like, and I've heard that over and over again, and it's totally moving every time. It never dissipates on how it moves you. Is that
Just how broad the impact is. Yeah.
absolutely that we're serving people, and we get that privilege, and it's a privilege. And if we ever get away from that, is when you start getting away from the principles that, and we're not going to get away from it, because I see it in you guys, all the guys, and it is a mission. Life is a mission. It's not just the laundromats. It's when you walk out the door and you go home. And so we've been very, very blessed to be able to do some of those things. Those callings are very humbling. Very, very humbling.
Yeah. It's a mission and a ministry. Luke and I talk about that. We use
Yes.
that word.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's part of what the Lord has called us to do. We want to be faithful
the
to that.
community is so important, and as you grow larger in territory and numbers, it's harder to stay tight. But we always say we're going to grow large by growing small, and that means our staff know the customer's name when they walk in the door. They care. Everybody comes in, make me feel important is tattooed on their forehead. If we can just make people feel important, show them the love of Christ, and the rest kind of takes care of themselves. They do more laundry. They tell more people who come and do more laundry,
Yes.
and and so on and so on.
And Luke, you mentioned staff, and that sort of takes us into the next part of our ministry, our mission, is that making the life better for our staff. I'm pretty certain I can say this with all honesty, is I truly believe nobody in the industry pays what we pay as far as a wage. And the Lord has sent us people that deserve that wage, because they do a great job. They do it with the right attitude, and they serve people well. And how it keeps happening, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, because you keep getting more stores, and yesterday in Anger, you watched the manager engage with people as they come in the door, and I'm like, oh man. And that's the way it is everywhere. It just amazes me that the good Lord keeps sending us those kind of people, so we can keep that unity and that bond. And then
small field.
Yes, and then the Christmas party every year, the Christmas celebration. Basically, it's like a major league party,
festival,
prayer meeting. We have church. We really do.
Yeah.
And it is.
And some people,
yes, it's 200 people. It's like, man, you can't make that up.
In the mid-year recently,
in the mid-year, yes,
we really focus on our staff. We give them a bonus, and we really encourage them to go back and be an encouragement to everybody who comes. You've got to be intentional about telling people what you expect of them.
We all need those reminders.
And to know that they're cared for too, and they go out, and a lot of times laundry, attendants, we call them store managers, they can be lonely. They're on an island, so it always takes responsible people who are going to do the right thing without you looking over them, because nobody's over their shoulder. That's been a blessing.
Yep.
We've been able to, recruit staff from, Hardee's, McDonald's, these places where they're having to work elbow to elbow with 20 other people, and when they can come, they like the autonomy. We don't micromanage, and it's really, really worked out well, and we pray the Lord continues to keep sending people that we can bless. They're going to be a blessing to us, but we want to bless them too, and not only monetarily, but also with life and
culture that we've built.
Yeah, we've got office admin who is there to help them, and
Priceless.
we're there to help them if they need.
Customer service manager, Ms. Patricia.
Yeah, but all that's kind of, we got taught, we get a lot of credit, like we've learned a lot, but you can understand today that a lot of what we learned came from Dad and our uncles as well. Their experience, we got to.
It's a generational thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it really is. When I think about it now, with the stores that we have, you guys and Justice and Josh and my brother Rodney, my brother-in-law Bill and Will, and them and Rodney's boys. We're up to 80-some stores.
Yeah, big footprint.
That's a big foot. You're serving a lot of people in a lot of places, and started in little rural town of Windsor over there, and it always comes to mind when I think of the start. It all started during the Civil Rights Movement, and when Dad took over that store that had gone bankrupt, the first thing he did was take out the wall between the races.
That's good. That's so good.
Yeah. It's just the impact that one act had, the fruit of that is beyond imagination. Yeah, that's pretty cool. What a legacy.
Yes,
that was special.
Yes, definitely.
And we've been trying to since then continue to improve and make everyone feel welcome in our stores.
Everyone. Absolutely.
And I think in fact, when I said a few words at the Christmas party last year, I looked out and I said, now this looks like America. Yeah. Because we've got everybody, every race, it's diverse. Yeah. And if all of America got along like that, and we can, if we all have the same mission in mind, which we do, we have to learn to sit down and talk it out. And Lord, it was just amazing to watch that many people from that many backgrounds get together, and they're all one.
Yes,
it's a blessing.
And we do so more than we think. The news just likes to pinpoint and pull.
Right, Luke. That's exactly right. Sure. Bad news sells.
It's beautiful. If you go around and
witness it.
Put
just
that phone down and just look
for it.
Talk
it's
to
there.
people. Go in a laundromat. Go in your local laundromat. We had a news reporter in Elizabeth City a while back. He said he was writing an article and he happened to be at the laundromat, and it was the most beautiful thing. It was during one of the controversial election times. He's like,
people
we see all
people
helping people.
Right.
It's beautiful.
It's the environment that's there. Yep.
One other question I wanted to add. You started in dry cleaning. When did that change? And
Oh wow, the past sort of carries itself along, and you can't make that stuff up again. You look back, and there was a juncture when I considered getting additional drop-off stores and maybe another cleaners, and I had a cleaners in Williamston, and my brother Rodney had a cleaners in Windsor. He had a couple of laundromats. I had at that time 5 laundromats. And we were having lunch one day, and he said, do you think you'd be willing to maybe trade me my laundromats for your cleaners? Because he was living in a town up from Williamston, beyond Williamston, and Windsor was on his way. Williamston was on his way every time. And so we talked it out, and I ended up trading him for the laundromats for the dry cleaners. And he stayed in dry cleaner throughout the 80s and 90s. And at that time, I ended up buying another store in Edenton after that. So that put me up to 6, and then Scotland Neck was 7, and and it just kept on going. And next thing you know, I got a dozen laundromats. So at that point, it turned and went toward laundromats, which I figured out later was my calling, because back then dry cleaning was a professional industry. You felt like a true professional when you went to a conference and those type things, and laundromats were actually looked down upon. And I think something in me went off that these people in the laundromats need something better. I just wish I'd have had the resources to make it happen faster,
Sure.
you know, and
Yeah.
with the resources it takes, you know, you
Yes.
can't go but so
No,
fast.
yeah, for sure. And that's a lot of listeners. That, I mean, we can
Yeah.
relate.
Yes, they
That's-
can relate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's cool. Well, this has been great. I hope that gives you all some insight on our history and about Dad and his journey and
Yes.
yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are going to watch this and really enjoy it.
Yes, for sure.
Most watched episode.
Yes, share this episode. We love you, Dad.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Love you, boys.
Like, share.
God bless you for the work you do.